The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time starts with a foreshadowing nightmare as the game unfolds. But what if we messed with that nightmare? Could we confront Ganondorf or get lost in a nightmarish world? Honestly, I've always been fascinated by this super long intro to the game, so I hope you enjoy my weird adventures trying to ruin it. Now, all legendary adventures need a hero, and we have to name our hero, so we're going to give them the most heroic name ever. Let's see here. How about Lunk? Introducing Lunk, the bizarro version of Link. And with that, we start the game. So as a heads up, I'm playing on a save file that I've been tinkering with a little bit. I've been hopping around and actually went back to the title screen to start this game. So that may play a role in things. And I mention this specifically because for some reason, the top part of Link's house is sort of glitched out. As you can see, there's this horizontal strip that we can see the level collision through. This collision map is normally obscured, but for some reason, it's not right now. What I'm going to do is start waking up Link at different intervals. So we're going to rewind time for a second, and the second we see text on screen, I'm going to wake Link up. Now, if we wake Link up at this moment, the screen stays completely dark. We can move around as Link, but we can't see anything. So enabling a different view, a collision view, allows us to see the world around us through the darkness. And I always found it neat, but also odd, how Ocarina of Time does their interiors. Like this house is basically like one big image wrapped around, and yet they use a collision map to isolate certain areas that Link should not be able to walk to. But the detail level is so low that we normally can't see anything, but in this collision view, we can see what the house actually looks like in terms of the 3D space it actually occupies. So you can see all these different objects and these collision boxes that you normally cannot see, and it's kind of neat seeing it this way. So, rewinding time again and putting Link back to sleep, we're now going to wake him up as soon as he appears on camera. And doing so actually puts Link at the center of the room. Now there's like this table area that the camera always sort of like shows out from. Normally, you cannot get to this area, but Link spawns here and we're able to jump off it. And of course, changing our perspective is a little weird here, but we can walk around and explore the house in this early morning hour, and then we can also leave the house, and Saria comes running up to us as if nothing had changed. Now, this is all well and good, but the reason we're here is specifically for this nightmare. Because as the story progresses, Link has a nightmare that he's shivering about that is basically him seeing the future. And within this nightmare, he's standing outside of Hyrule Castle, and Zelda and Impa come racing out with Ganondorf following them. And of course, normally Ganondorf attacks Link at this moment, but Link sort of just freaks out and then he wakes up. But this dream world was always kind of neat to me because like it's the future, but it's playing in real time at the start of the game. So what if we were to interrupt this nightmare? Well, doing so is actually kind of creepy. So when you interrupt this nightmare, the things in front of you sort of disappear. Link is left alone on this map, and Zelda, Impa, Ganondorf, all those people are gone. And the world is so dark and ominous and empty. So as I'm running across Hyrule Field trying to see what this world contains, every little action and every sound effect that I make echoes across this empty landscape. And that sort of aids in the creepy factor. The world is dark, and it's perpetually raining around our character. Lunk has unfortunately become a very, very soggy boy. And as I made my way around to the front of Lon Lon Ranch and just really took in the castle from far away, it was kind of haunting. So of course I want to explore this, so I try heading into Lon Lon Ranch and the game crashes. Apparently there's not a correct warp setup there, and the same thing happens if we try to go into Hyrule Castle Town after the bridge comes down. Entering this map, or attempting to, will crash the game. And something else that's kind of neat is that depending on when we actually interrupt this nightmare, that will determine how bright the map is. So if we do this during a time when the game is dark, of course, the game stays dark. The world is pitch black, and if we enable a collision viewer, you can see that it looks like Link stepped into the Twilight Realm from Twilight Princess. As if exploring a nightmare wasn't creepypasta material enough, we have this now new abstract world that looks very, very strange. Like I said earlier, stopping this cutscene kind of just unloads everything. None of the actors, the characters, persist after this is unloaded. And it's kind of a bummer because I really wanted to take a look at these things frozen in time or stuck in their idle animations, but we're going to take a look a different way. So we're basically going to freeze the cutscene and take a look at the different components as it progresses. So we have Link in front of the drawbridge before it comes down, and then we get like this flash of Impa and Zelda in the back, and they normally run by Link, but this is what they look like up close. As they run by Link, eventually they get off screen, and then Link reacts and Ganondorf appears behind him. And Ganondorf indeed just appears behind him. And if we go to take a look at Ganondorf at this moment, it's actually kind of neat because it reveals something else. All the skyboxes in Ocarina of Time are actually squares, but we have a smaller rain box around the character that constantly has the weather playing around them. This is why when I was running around the field, the rain was always following me. But if we move the camera out of this, we'll notice that the rain isn't actually playing everywhere. It's just around us. Now the world we're in is a cutscene map, and when these cutscenes are called upon, it does load in a lot of different objects. And all these objects are independent of one another. So if we want to, we can just remove Ganondorf's horse, and then he's just sort of floating there, all weird. Unfortunately though, Ganondorf is much more powerful when he's floating off his horse, so as we try to exit the nightmare out of fear, as the nightmare is actually ending, we get the inversion of what we saw before. The screen gets brighter during this transition, so as we exit this and we turn on the collision viewer as the world is bathed in light, well, everything becomes gray, white, and dull blues. And this makes the world feel a lot different as well. And while I was running around this bizarre grayish world, I decided to run to Kakariko Village because I actually did not try that warp yet. My hunch was that going up the staircase was going to crash the game, but I was wrong. It actually took me to Kakariko Village, the normal map, so that upon exiting the village, it took me back to the normal Hyrule field. We exit one nightmare and immediately enter another as Kaepor Bagora begins talking to us. I honestly don't know which one's worse. A perpetual world of darkness, or a never-ending conversation with this cursed owl. So of course, Lunk, our pristine hero, does what any hero would do. They banish themselves back to the world of darkness. And back in this nightmare, we decide to delete both Zelda and their horse. So Impa just kind of comes strolling out of the castle doing like this power squat. Her burly form is so powerful that she just floats out of the castle and flies off into the field. And equally as terrifying is if Ganondorf's horse is the only thing that shows up. If we remove Ganondorf from this scene, well, there's just a really evil horse staring Link down. But honestly, during this whole thing, I really want to just confront Ganondorf here in the past. I mean, why not defeat Ganondorf here, right now, in this nightmare, and stop all the events from happening in Ocarina of Time? This was easier said than done. I was thinking this would be not too difficult to have happen, but I was definitely wrong. Because I spent a lot of time trying to get Ganondorf's fight to appear on this map. I mean, imagine how cool it would be if above this drawbridge, Ganondorf just started floating around like his fight in the castle. And what I didn't realize, at least from what I believe, is that it was actually the map itself that was preventing Ganondorf from appearing and fighting me. So I started experimenting. I forced myself to load into Lon Lon Ranch without it crashing, and then I tried the same setup there. And lo and behold, it actually works. I think there's something wrong with Hyrule Field. I mean, it's a massive map, but for some reason these things don't work there, and maybe it's just a cutscene map, I'm not entirely sure. But here we are, we stroll into Lon Lon Ranch, and we see Ganondorf. And I have to say, have you ever just strolled into Lon Lon Ranch and Ganondorf is hosting an outside piano concert? Yeah, me neither. Until today. But the juxtaposition of Ganondorf playing this piano and talking to us and laughing at us while there's cows mooing in the background, it definitely hits different. And what's kind of funny is I was trying to actually break out of this cutscene as well, so that when Ganondorf blasts us with dark energy, well, Lunk, our pristine hero, is nowhere to be found. But then we realized that this piano area is an illusion. And Lunk was super pumped to fight Ganondorf, and he dies in one hit. Poor Lunk didn't even stand a chance. So I'm trying this again, and I have invincibility on because I don't want Lunk to die. What I realize is that Child Link's hitbox for his sword is a little bit too low to always hit the magic back. Sometimes it doesn't even connect with the magic, and we just get hits anyways. So the solution to this is to Z-target so that we always use vertical slashes when knocking the magic back. But even if we successfully volley the magic back and forth and hit Ganondorf, well, we run into another problem. We can't use light arrows as a child. And of course, we need light arrows to advance this fight. Even if we force the game to equip light arrows with Child Link, when he goes to use them, it will just pull out the slingshot and shoot normal pellets. And the slingshot pellets don't really do anything to Ganondorf. He sort of just shrugs them off with his cape. but we can shoot them really, really fast, and we can perpetually hold them in place, and if we have infinite ammo on, well, Ganondorf is never going to move again. I also found it interesting that Ganondorf always pulls his cape up to defend anytime you shoot a pellet, even if it's at the ground or behind you. I guess I always thought it was only if you were aiming at him, but that does not appear to be the case. So all hope of defeating Ganondorf within this nightmare was unfortunately lost. But you know, nightmares tend to get worse as they go on, and so did this one. The timeline began to repeat and warp in on itself, and suddenly more Ganondorfs appeared. Watching tons of Ganondorfs play the piano at the same time is like a weird fever dream. The dude's got like spider hands with like 30 fingers as he slams the keys. At this point, I can't even tell what's going on anymore. There's like overlapping cutscenes, like Ganondorf's telling me to give him the Triforce while also blasting with dark magic. And one of the Ganondorfs is knocking out Piano Man on the keys, and there is just too much going on to understand what is actually happening. But suddenly, everything comes to a head, and I see 3 Ganondorfs in the sky throwing energy at me. And so I run underneath them not thinking, and all of them start to ground pound the field beneath them. And because of all their combined glory, the game just crashes. And so Link awakens from this nightmare, and he's back within his house. But we're not done yet. I have a little bit more to show you. So after this nightmare takes place, Navi appears in front of the Great Deku Tree. And I'll be honest, I never knew this, but in this scene, Link is actually up above the Deku Tree on the perimeter of the map. He's like standing up to the right in this upper part of the forest that is normally inaccessible. And if we interrupt this scene, we can actually explore this area. So there's not really a ton up here, it just encloses the map down below. But if we were to follow it to the edge where the loading zone is, and then jump down below and skip the loading zone, well, Kokiri Forest, the town area, is unloaded. The trigger for this is in the hallway between the Deku Tree and the village. And we missed that, so it never happened. So if we start the scene over, and we let Navi begin to fly to Link's house, well, if we interrupt the scene at that point, the Great Deku Tree area will be unloaded, and Link is just floating in the sky. There is a low poly version of the Deku Tree that you can normally see in the background that is over here, and looking at it from this angle is kind of funny. But I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try to see what would happen if we made Link an adult on this map. And doing so is a bit tricky, but we can get to work. And when Navi begins flying around, well, the only person in the village is Mido. Unfortunately, Mido is stuck between 2 timelines, as adult Link is experiencing his child timeline's cutscene that starts the game. And now I try to get adult Link to appear in the other instances, like I want adult Link to wake up on the bed, or I want adult Link to encounter Ganondorf in the nightmare. Maybe there's someone out there who can actually do it, but I was not able to, so unfortunately that was a bust. But I would have loved to see adult Link shivering on the bed and just being too big for the bed he was sleeping on. But as a final bonus before we end this video, we want to take control of Link on the title screen. And doing so can lead to a wrong warp that actually takes us to the Deku Tree when we advance the title screen menu. And on this title screen area, I got rid of the logo on the start button, and I was trying to mess around with Link on Epona as well. For example, giving Link access to a shield while on Epona so he could defend himself from, well, nothing in this scenario. But using a shield on Epona would have been really cool, or even taking your sword out on Epona. And that's the thing if we mess with the game, but you can't swing your sword. Now, a lot of this stuff is very similar to doing the swordless Link glitch. I used to do that all the time as a kid. I would have Beast Ganon knock the Master Sword out of my hand, and I would pause and save the game while the Master Sword was unequipped. And then when you loaded the game and went on Epona, you could use all sorts of weapons. This is the same method I used to try to touch the moon in Ocarina of Time many years ago. While latching onto an object with hookshot while on top of Epona, and then getting off Epona, you can move all around with hookshot then. But in this instance, things are a bit weird. I'm using bombs on top of Epona while riding around, and thankfully it doesn't hurt me and knock me off the horse, but I also can just do a roll off of Epona. Instead of getting off Epona normally, I just roll off her, and by doing so, I'm controlling both Epona and Link. And this is kind of funny because I can now get back on Epona from anywhere on the map, and Link will just sort of crawl out of the earth like a zombie. He just like warps beneath the horse and just rises out of the ground, trying to get on top of Epona. And if we rotate Epona at this point, Link will try to get on the horse backwards before ultimately correcting his orientation. So yeah, there's a lot of funny results when you mess with the game on the title screen and during the intro cutscene. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed Lunk's Bizarre Adventure. Subscribe right now if you did, and I will see all of you in my next video. Cheers!